Well, first of all, Last Man on Earth, great album by the way. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, I love great harmonies, the choruses, and the album artwork is really cool. I really like it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the artwork was done by a guy called Christian Greatrex, and he does a lot of artwork for UFO, the English rock band UFO over the years. He's done
Oh,
he's done quite a lot of artwork for UFO and for when Paul Raymond, he's not with us anymore, bless him, but the keyboard player, from UFO, he used to do a couple of solo albums, and Tris went and did his solo albums as well, and yeah, so he's a fantastic artist. When I do work with Lionheart, Tris done the last two Lionheart albums, so he's just a great artist. So when we had the Last Man on Earth, the concept of it, I knew he would be great. He would love to get his teeth into that one and just really enjoy the concept of it all. And he's done it, as you say. It looks fantastic. I'm really pleased.
yeah. I was looking at the cover closely last night. Are you the astronaut in the album cover? That's you.
I am. That is me. That is me.
That
They,
is
they put
really
me in the
cool.
astronauts.
Yeah, 'cause, like,
And if you look into the booklets as well, there's they actually really do put me in the spacesuit, and you know, I don't know how old you are. I want to ask you your age, but in the 70s and the 60s and the 70s, there used to be a guy famous for making science fiction puppet series called the Thunderbirds and Joe 90 and all these different things, called Jerry Anderson.
mm,
And what he went and did, he did a live action show called UFO, and then he did another one called Space 1999. And we got in touch with Jerry Anderson's people, and they put us in touch with the guys who got us all the costumes. So all the costumes inside in the album artwork, the spacesuits and all that it was all from used in Jerry Anderson's Space 1999 back in the mid 70s. So that was quite cool.
oh, I see. So, like, bringing something from the past into the present.
That's it, into the future. Exactly. That's it. Was the concept back in the day. It was Space 1999. Ironically, it was made in, I think it was 1974
Mm.
till about 1976, but it was always set in the future, which was in 1999. So even
Oh,
though we're a few years down the line now, we're in 2023. It was just great to actually. When I was a kid, I used to love watching that TV show. So it was great to like put the costumes on and the helmet and it was just, and it worked obviously perfect for all the with Tristan's concept. So it was great.
yeah, yeah.
It
And
was
it's
good fun.
one, yeah, and it's one you have to like really pay attention to because, like I said before, I didn't even notice that was you in the astronaut costume. So, like, you really need to like look closely, or else you can miss it.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think that the good thing with Tristan's artwork is there's so much detail. He puts so much detail into things, and as you say, there's things what people don't notice first time round. And the more you look at the cover, especially it's going to be clearer on the vinyl, on the 12-inch vinyl cover because everything's a bit bigger. But there's a few little things in there. There's an old car, what's on there, which I used to own. I got rid of it this year, but I had it for some years. This car, so he put the car on for me, and I grew up in an area in just by Birmingham in England called the Black Country, and on top of the building there's a little flag which is the Black Country flag. So there's some lovely little detail detailed things to what connect with me. There's a big dish, like satellite dish, which connects to when I work with Signal Red and all this. So there's a lot of little things in there what
Oh,
for fans of the music to spot like that. So
oh, I didn't know. I didn't know that about the satellite dish. That's a good detail.
yeah, thank you.
How would you describe the album to your fans?
The fans, the album to me is a classic 80s authentic sounding West Coast AOR album. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write something in the style of the bands I used to sing with and stuff. But I'm kind of known for being a melodic rock singer and being in kind of Shy and Lionheart and all these melodic rock bands I work with. But I'd never actually ever done a melodic rock solo album. So I really wanted this to be out now 80s. Deliberately sounding 80s, but with a modern production. So that's what I would say this album is. I would say it's in the veins of Journey, Toto, Doobie Brothers, that type of thing, and hopefully, just an authentic sounding, retro 80s album.
I even heard a little Boston with the harmonies.
There you go, Boston. That's another big influence. Yeah, Brad Delph. I used to love, the early Boston albums and whatever. So this is what we've tried to do. We've tried to get all of those type of Kansas was another band I used to love as well. Steve Walsh and whatever. And I think we've just tried to fuse all the influences really. With I co-wrote all the songs with a guy. He's an Australian songwriter called Sony Steven, and basically he lived when we recorded the album. He was living in LA. And he's obviously influenced by all that type of music as well. So between the two of us, we really could make the album we wanted to make, and he writes musically in a style like I can't write anymore, so he can make those he can make it convincing, because that's his influences. My style's writing, as in when I play music and write from playing instruments. My style's kind of changed over the years to more. I always end up writing southern rock type of things, so he can do the AOR stuff really, really, really good. So it was a marriage made in heaven when we've come to write.
Okay. And going back to your influences, you talked about Kansas. You even talked about the early Boston albums. So who are some of your other influences?
My other influences, wow. I mean, being a soul singer, really, I've always been I kind of try and bring the soulful side of me into the melodic, to the melodic audiences, I always try and, there's no getting away from the soulful side of me, but I'm also a melodic rock vocalist. And I suppose very much in the same sort of vein as a Steve Perry, from Journey, because he used to be influenced by Sam Cooke. I used to like Sam Cooke, and he brought his soulful side to the melodic rock music. So I kind of fall into that genre. That's what I do. But my influences, I'm a massive Stevie Wonder fan over the years. I used to love, 70s Stevie Wonder and early 80s Stevie Wonder. I used to love all that. You talked about Brad Delph, Steve Walsh from Kansas, John White from the Babies, in Bad English. I used to love John White, there's so many singers. Michael Flexig, there's another one, used to be in a band called Zeno, who incidentally should have been singing a duet with me on this album, but he became sick and we couldn't get him on because he got COVID and he lost his voice, so we couldn't do that. And another guy who was on the album, Dan Reed. I was a massive Dan Reed Network fan, so that's kind of, there's a few of my influences there, but there's so many, there's so many guys, and I think you're just trying to take a little bit from everybody and fuse it together to make your own personality,
Song, by the way.
Thank you.
And great chorus. And another one of my favorites on the album is the Nakatomi Heist, which I believe is based on Die Hard, right?
It is, yes, it is. Anybody who knows the Die Hard movies will definitely find a connection with that one. And the way that one came about, I like to write different music. Instead of just writing the obvious, I like to find something that interests me and kind of a bit quirky sometimes. And I just thought that was a really different subject. And over Christmas in my household, watching the Die Hard movies, it's a ritual. We have to do it every Christmas, So it was great to actually like pay a nod of respect to the Die Hard movies, but especially to Bruce Willis with all the problems he's got going on at the moment as well. one of the greatest movies of all time, and he's one of the greats, So that was the story behind that song, really.
I'm in one of the minorities that hasn't seen the movie yet, so I definitely need to
Oh,
check.
you really? Yeah. Oh, you
I've
need to
never
check.
seen that.
You need to check. There's three films. You need to check them all out. Yeah,
Oh, there's three?
but I would. Yeah, there's three. Yeah, so you have to watch them at Christmas. That's the way. That's the time to do it because they are setting the first one. They're set at Christmas time, so that's the time to watch them.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And it's actually a good segue into my next question. Can you talk a little bit more about your songwriting process? I know you said earlier that you tend to write more like southern rock. Is that right?
Yeah, if I'm writing with instruments from scratch, over the years, I mean, I used to play obviously all the AOR and the I suppose I could have write when I was younger. I could write anything from a Motley Crue type of song to a Journey type of song. That was. But over the years, your styles change. And because of the soulful thing, and my love for the Doobie Brothers and things like that, I think I just tend to automatically sort of fall into that vein when I write a song, when I've got to play it from a chord structure. So there's different ways I write. I mean, if I'm writing from scratch, so I'll just pick a guitar up and I'll find some chords. And if I like the chords, I'll start humming a melody and then try and find a lyrics. Sometimes the lyrics jump out to you, from over the chords, and you kind of know what the song is going to be called. So when I tend to write for myself that way, with instruments, I kind of do it like that. If I write with other people, like where I've been writing with Sony on this album, he'll send me lots of clips over musically, lots of different ideas, and I'll go, I want that part for a verse, this part for, a chorus, lose that part. And, and basically he'll knock up a quick backing track again for me to work to see and I go, yeah, that's exactly how I want the song. And then I'll just, obviously, I'll just find the melodies and I'll write the lyrics to the pieces of music. But I've got to connect with the music first. So, I mean, like Sony, he'll send me so many pieces of music over, but there's only so many I'm going to connect with, and I go straight away. The jump out to the self. Sometimes I can hear music speaks, without it, without actually. I'll hear something, and all of a sudden it'll tell me the title. That's how it works sometimes, and then I can, or in another way, the melody will jump out in my head before I do anything, and I go, right, okay, straight away I've instantly got a thing with that. And so there's different ways of writing, really, but and lyrically, I just, instead of writing, I suppose 99% of songs these days are love songs and things like that, and it can be done by so many other people more convincing than myself. I'm not the greatest at writing that type of lyrics, really, so I like to write more unusual subjects. If I'm really into a subject, or like I do a lot on films and things like that of the past, like you talk about the Nakatomi heist. If I'm into that, and I know it hasn't been covered before, it's a different way of working, so I like to, but this, if I, if usually if there's something I'm really into, that's what a subject matter, or I can really put my heart and soul into it and play around with the words. And I like to make a play on words, like The Last Man on Earth, for instance. It's the concept of the whole album is all space, The Last Man on Earth. I took the title for that from a Vincent Price movie from 1963, because as a child, I used to love all the sci-fi movies and the horror movies, things like that. So I took the title from a Vincent Price movie, but the actual song itself is nothing to do with space at all. It's about a volatile relationship between a couple, so it's completely different, But it's an interesting way of crossing. You left me standing like a last man on earth, somebody walking out on somebody. And so I like to play with words like that.
Was that your first single from the album?
That was the second one, actually. I mean, we
Oh,
released a lot of people, because it's the first one we've released this year from the album.
ah, see.
But we did we put a song out from the album at Christmas time, and it was the last song to come in on the album, and it's not on the vinyl edition, but it's on the digipack. It's on the CD version, and it's a song called "The Big Unknown," and it was the last song to make the record. We needed an extra we needed an extra song for the CD, so so I wanted to cover that one, and it was a song recorded by the soul singer Sade, and when I heard the song, I just could hear myself doing it, and there's so much space for me to work with and put my emotion in, and so I said to Tom Cory, who did all the production, I said I want to do this song. So he actually did the backing track in 2 hours, and he literally, because all the actual sessions had been finished, this being the last song. So he actually put the track together, and within 2 hours, I got a backing track back. And I obviously I could work to that to record it, and he come out. We was messing around, and we did some Christmas bells and all sorts of stuff, and made it very Christmassy. So we decided to put a Christmas version of that song out in December, The Big Unknown. So that was the first one technically off the record, but it goes on this album with all the Christmas bells and everything stripped from it. It's just more. It's just a West Coast song now. The way we've done it, there's no Christmas side to it. That was just for the Christmas version. It's still out there on download, I think, to be able to purchase and that, but it's a slightly different version to what goes on the album. But then Last Man on Earth was the first one we did this year, and then we've just released Silhouettes as well as a third single, which will be the final single from the album.
I find it's interesting that you bring up The Big Unknown, because the two titles, The Big Unknown and The Last Man on Earth, they kind of go together in a way. They kind of fit the album.
They do, and there's a video. If you check out on YouTube, we released a video for The Big Unknown, and it was when we did it was the same day we used all the for the photo shoot for the album with the spacesuits, and so we did it. There was a video we made, and we used all the moon buggies and things like that and everything for The Big Unknown. So so it's all got the same concept as the album concept, So it's, but yeah, it came out. Obviously, it was a Christmas single, so it's a very Christmassy to a degree. It starts off very Christmassy, and then it's again playing The Last Man on Earth. It all plays a part in that actual video. So if you check that one out when you get a minute, you'll see what I'm trying to say with that. But it's got all the concept from the album art, basically.
Who did illustrations for the video?
Well, you're not going to believe it. I've done an awful lot myself for that video. I did an awful lot of putting it all together. We got it filmed obviously in Milton Keynes in the Space Museum. They let us have the run of that place, and it's such a fantastic, just an amazing place. There's all sorts of memorabilia there from Star Wars, so much Star Wars stuff and things like this, but right down to the Space 99's, the Jerry Anderson stuff and all that. So all the moon buggies and all the stuff was there, and it was just incredible to be able to just have it. It was like a playground for us. We could just film against the green screen with all the moon buggies and all the different things, and obviously all the photo shoot was against the green screen, and then we just put it all together, afterwards. But I did a lot of the editing side of thing. I kind of enjoy doing that as well. So it was nice to get involved with that part of it as well. So as it was put together.
Yeah. And I want to go back a little bit. You mentioned Tom Cory produced the album, right?
Yes, that's right.
He did a couple of the Sweet albums, right?
He did, yes. He's actually comes on the road with us when we play live with the Sweet. He's basically second guitar for Andy Scott, and he plays all the keyboards live and stuff as well. He's the keyboard player for us live, and he adds like a fifth harmony, when we want to do extra vocals, because the band's 100% live when we go on the road. All the the big block of voices is completely live, you know, the guy Tom, he's a great guitarist, he's a great keyboard player, he can sing, and he's such a fantastic producer, you know, which is why I wanted him to do this album, purely because he understands old school in sound, you know, like he knew where working with a suite, he works with Andy Scott a lot, produces with Andy Scott, and he's got a real understanding for 70s and 80s type of music. But what he's got in his artillery is he's such an incredible producer. He can give it a modern sound. He can bring it all up to date, so it doesn't sound dated. It's got that vintage sound to it, but it sounds a modern production, and that's a real skill to get that balance, and he's got that. He's so clever at that. So he's definitely why I wanted him to do this record, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say the production. It's definitely a good mix between, like I hate to say the word, but like retro, but also modern. It's a good mix.
Yeah, that's it. It's a really good blend, yeah. And it was deliberate to have it, like I say, as we mentioned, it was deliberately, you know, a deliberate thing to have that retro thing. I just wanted it to sound authentic, you know. There's no point doing, and there's a big resurgence with the 80s as well now, with all the TV shows like Stranger Things, and there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of interest in that as well. So the whole thing, it's all about timing, and because when I started to write with Sony as well, and then the big 80s thing came through as well, it was just all the stars have got to align, and it just felt right for this album to do that, you know. It was the right time to put it out.
I think Cobra Kai also helped with that resurgence in the 80s.
Exactly. There's another one, Cobra Kai, yes, you know, and you know, with all the 80s rock things, what Johnny and stuff, you know, I was listening to all the 80s soundtrack, you know, to his 80s, you know, and this is it, you know, but it's giving a whole new audience it's a platform to listen to these songs where they wouldn't have never heard them before, and it's opening a lot of the interest from the new generation into that, you know, into that the 80s sound and things like this, and the 70s music and stuff like this. It's great because it's keeping it alive, you know, and it's keeping it really vogue.
Yeah, and it's also bringing younger audiences.
Absolutely, this is it. When we play live with the Sweets, for instance, we see original Sweet fans right from the early 70s, you know, there, and then we see them with their sons and daughters in the crowd, you know, and now we've seen them with the grandkids, you know, we've seen like 8, 9, 10-year-olds in the audience with Sweet t-shirts on, sing on the front row, singing the lyrics. They know all the lyrics of the Sweet and stuff, and it's just incredible that music's the cycle, you know. It's like the new generation discovering old music, and you know, so and obviously music in that sound, you know, and we do owe everything to, you know, like for instance, what I'm trying to find is recording an album in that melodic AOR West Coast sound is, you know, definitely tapping into the audiences of Cobra Kai and the Stranger Things, and obviously people who's the new people who's discovering a new generation who's discovering that genre, you know.
I think it also goes to show how timeless not only your music but also that decade, just how timeless the music is.
Absolutely, to me, you know, 70s and 80s will always be to me the best era for music, you know, from 69, I would say, you know, from the bands that was coming through on Woodstock, you know, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and you know, and all that type of bands onwards, you know, the creativity through music, and I used to love a lot of the prog bands, and you know, and then as a kid, I kind of I kind of got into new wave bands, which was like the guitar things, which was the pre-runner to in England in say 1979, 1980. We had a movement called the new wave of British heavy metal come through, and that's brought out bands like Iron Maiden. You know what I mean? And they was in that, and ironically, Lionheart first, when Denny Stratton, the guitarist out of Lionheart, left Iron Maiden, he formed Lionheart, and you know, and so there was that sort of sounds what was coming out of England, and I kind of loved the guitars and I loved all that, the post punk rock thing and whatever. So everything kept evolving, from the Led Zeppelin things from '69 and early '70s to that new wave of British heavy metal, and obviously with the Black Sabbath things, but then obviously I discovered the American sort of music, the likes of Boston, the likes of Kansas, the likes of Journey, and the Night Rangers, all this sort of stuff, and Frankie and the Knockouts, all these sort of American bands, and I absolutely loved. I realised that's where I was, I loved that American radio sound,
Yeah. And actually, I'll never forget this. I saw Blue Oyster Cult back in January, and then my dad he told one of the concert goers that he was just happy that someone like my age was actually going to see a band that he grew up with.
Amazing. I was a big Blue Oyster Cult fan, and it's funny because I actually took my daughter to see a couple of years ago when they was back in England. I took him to see Blue Oyster Cult as well because that was a massive band from New York City in the '70s. I first seen Blue Oyster Cult in 1985, and at Birmingham Odeon. I first seen them, and they'd been obviously going a good decade before that. But to me, one of the best Blue Oyster Cult albums ever was Fire of the Unknown Origin. I used to love that album with Burning for You, and there's some great songs, but yeah, just such a great band. Again with two voices in that band. Like you got Eric Bloom, who did a lot of the singing, but then you got like Buck Dharma on guitar, who did the likes of Downfield the Reaper and the more commercial sounding stuff. And they really tapped into that in the '80s. They really tapped into that commercial MTV sound,
Yeah, they definitely embrace the commercial side. It's the tides were changing. They kind of embrace that commercial sound.
Absolutely. I think especially when videos were with the MTV thing, when that was born, I think it was just a given to. It molded a lot of American bands that way, for the better, really. I thought it was a great period, So I'm impressed you went to see Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah, I've been getting into a lot of, I hate to use the word, but like older bands in the past few years. Yeah.
You got to see them while they're still here, while they're still playing. That's what my daughter's doing. She's going to see it as many as she can while she can, because they'll be wrapping up soon, None of us are getting any younger, So it's you have to see these guys while they're out there,
So, do you feel like you've accomplished everything that you wanted to do, or is there something on your music bucket list that you've always wanted to do, but you never got a chance to do it yet?
I feel like I've accomplished everything, really. Everything. I mean, I've been lucky. I've been in the business now since I started when I was 15. I started out in playing the pubs when I was 15, and joining. I was gigging every other night and stuff like this. And I kind of never stopped really. And then I kind of mid '90s, early '90s. So I kind of signed my first album deal, and I've kind of done that many things today. I can't. I kind of been really lucky, and I've kind of worked with a lot of great people, and I've covered a lot of my musical styles and stuff like this. But with this last album, I probably feel like I've come full circle, really. Hence, that's the title of the new Sweet album, Full Circle, because we kind of, that's their last album as well. And as a solo artist, I feel like this could be my final solo record, to be honest, because I feel like I've accomplished everything really what I set out to do, and a lot of it, even what I didn't set out to do, I've just been lucky. I've had a lot of chances, and it's just been I've been blessed to work with a lot of great people. There's a few more things records I'm involved with to still come out, and there's a couple more what I've still got to do. But I think then once those are done, I think I'll probably be, that'll be it probably from me.
I mean, you pretty much covered a lot of the genres already, like blues rock, reggae.
Absolutely, this is it. I mean, the reggae album. You say about the reggae album. I used to love obviously Bob Marley, and I kind of, I class myself as a musical chameleon because there's so many musical influences and I was into, and and I kind of like you say try and take this, that, and the other and mold them all up and use it the way I can in my style of music. When we was in lockdown in England, and nobody could go out and it wasn't safe, I was doing exercises around the house, and I was just walking around and around the house to get my steps in and stuff like this. And I dug out all my old Bob Marley records from the 70s, all the old island records where he used to be signed to, and I was listening to all that, and to be honest, nobody was in a great place mentally in that time, so I needed something positive to do and something different to do to get me want to write some music and do something. So that's how the reggae album came about. It was because I listened to all the Bob stuff again. I thought this is the way out of a dark mentally place, with lockdown and all this and whatever. So it was just a really different avenue to take for me to do that. And I suppose there's not that many artists can get away with changing the direction a little bit. And I'm kind of really been lucky, I suppose the small fan base or whatever that I've got, they'll buy into a lot of the stuff I do, and because it's still me, whatever I do, it's still what I do, whether it's a rock thing or a southern rock thing or like I say, a blues rock thing or that reggae album, what I did, it's still very much myself, so that's how that one came about, really,
And the end result was great.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the album, The Last Man on Earth, comes out May 26th, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly that.
Also,
And it comes out. That's all throughout Europe and America, I think, in on May 26th, and I think it's coming out in Japan on Ward Records. In Europe, obviously, it's coming out on Metalville Records. In Japan, it's coming out on Ward Records. Round about at the same time. I'm not exactly sure of the release date, but for Japan, but it's but the main date is May the 26th. Yeah.
awesome. Well, I want to thank you, Lee, again for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's been lovely talking to you.
You too. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. You have a good time.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.